Hi guys, I think it's pretty bad for Donald Trump when Fox frigging News is calling out his rubbish. So the president posted on his own social media platform a lot of misinformation, or as Donald Trump likes to call it, fake news. Now this was about the Ukrainian president regarding his ratings, money, and of course the line that grabbed the most attention, that Zelenskyy was a dictator. Now this of course is coming from a US president who claimed to have won the 2020 election and then sat by as his supporters stormed the Capitol and attempted to murder his vice president. Here both the reporter and General Jack Keane, who ironically received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Trump, called out the president's BS. Wonderful stuff. Have a listen to this.
He says that Zelenskyy has a 4% approval rating. The numbers that we have seen are more in the 50% range, north of 50% range. And he's criticizing Zelenskyy for not holding elections. Now, clearly, this is something that Russia would like to see happen because they would love to get a Yanukovych or somebody who, is much more favorable to Russia into that seat. Is the president undermining the election process? And can an election take place in the middle of this war at all, General?
Well, a couple of things. Yeah, Zelensky's polling as of February this month is 57% favorable. It was 52 in December. I mean, it was in the 90s and, 22 when the war started. But obviously, he got very favorable ratings. Look at the Constitution that Ukraine has prohibits elections when you declare martial law because of a state of war takes place. And obviously, the incumbent who is trying to run a war to be involved in an election and bringing people together in primaries and other elections puts the people at risk. There's two other parts of that martial law. If you're 18 to 60 years of age and a male, you can't leave the country. And also they're curbing civil liberties, particularly freedom of movement, by curfews in the contested areas. So the fact that their constitution is driving this, the parliament, bipartisan support for all the extensions they've had to the martial law. So they are acting democratically, in my judgment, in abiding by their constitution, and also the parliament is supporting it, which represents the people throughout the country. These are democratic actions taking place in a democratic country. I don't believe we should try and push elections on Zelenskyy during the middle of this war. I think if there is a peace agreement, I think Zelenskyy and others and the people themselves will demand an election, and it would likely take place assuming the peace agreement has some real legs to it.
Okay. Well said, well said. This absolute rubbish that's coming out of Donald Trump's mouth, it's as if it was written by people in the Kremlin or maybe even Putin himself. Call in an election. Now, once again, he mentioned here, you can't have an election during a state of war. And he pointed out perfectly the reasons why there. There's also the other issue that was raised slightly at the beginning by the reporter. Putin would like to put somebody pro-Kremlin in charge in Ukraine, of course. And how would he achieve that? Well, he would, of course, manipulate the voting system. He would flood social media with bots to, of course, help his candidate. And then, of course, the war would be over because, well, the new president would just declare, well, Ukraine is now part of Russia. That's what Putin would hope to achieve by putting somebody who's pro-Kremlin in charge in Ukraine. It's not going to happen. We already saw what happened in Romania, where two candidates who had no standing, no real following, suddenly were given huge amounts of, were hugely amplified just before the election. And it turned out, well, the bots were switched on and there was an amplification from Russia to flip the election in favor of candidates who are pro-Russian. Now, the Constitutional Court in Romania knocked that on its head, struck it down, and said we need to have proper elections again. Putin will be doing exactly the same thing in Ukraine. And of course, there's another question to be answered. Where would the election take place if it was held today? Because at the moment, Ukraine controls part of Kursk, which is part of Russia. Would there be elections in Kursk or in that area? What about in the Donbass? Is that part of Ukraine according to Trump, or is it part of Russia? Should there be elections there as well? So none of this makes sense. This is just Donald Trump pandering to his friend in the Kremlin. This is extremely dangerous, but there is a silver lining here. At least some people who are usually on Donald Trump's side are rebuking him over this, saying this is completely wrong. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.